Artists are always looking for different ways to shock and give people new emotions that they've never felt before. Sometimes it seems like creativity can become quite frightening, and you start to wonder if the artist really belongs in a mental institution instead of an art gallery. From a sculpture made of human blood to a human-dog hybrid, here are the creepiest art installations. Number 15. Self. Self by Mark Quinn, used as a resource that didn't show up too many times in artwork. If you're not feeling a tad nauseous by looking at this photo already, you might feel that way after we tell you that this sculpture is made out of his own blood. 9 pints or 4.5 liters was taken out of his body, then frozen, then he sculpted it himself. If that doesn't seem unconventional enough, he actually does this one time every 5 years in order to track his health and aging. He might be healthier not taking out large quantities of blood. Despite his shocking artwork, he manages to be a big success and a bestseller in the art world. Couldn't the blood have just been a little bit more useful if it was donated? Just saying. Number 14. Horror hands. This definitely doesn't look like something you want to hold hands with. This sculpture we see in this photo from Jonathan Payne depicts a mass of mutated hands growing out of each other, and is quite appalling to say the least. This seems like something only a serial killer would place as a centerpiece in their dining room. People seem to get easily bored with traditional art, so something shocking is usually needed to grab their attention. The artist displays a few grotesque things that come to his imagination and brings it to life. Trying to understand what this represents will give you a headache, and it's best not to look at it for too long. Let's move on to the next one. Number 13. Half human, half pig. Artist Liu Zhu has created a lot of bizarre artwork, mostly portraying sculptures of human hybrids. Social media was quick to react with shock and somewhat disgust. The half-human, half-pig sculpture might represent how some overweight people might feel on the inside. Although they may look at themselves in the mirror and see a human, they might not completely feel that way from ridicule. Although this might be a harsh interpretation, the sad look on his face seems to tell the story. People have been known to do quite a bit of experimentation with pigs, so it does make you kind of wonder what exactly a human-pig hybrid would look like. Liu Zhu has made some other hybrid sculptures that are pretty creepy, such as this photo, which displays a half-human, half-dog. Number 12. Sculpture of the Sea. When you go to the beach, you expect to see some things like sandcastles or starfish, but you certainly would be a little bit startled if you came across this. Located in Perth, Australia, an artist made a wave that would strike fear into any courageous surfer's heart. She probably scared any preteen girl in the process as well. This wave is made completely out of naked Barbie dolls. Belgian artist Annette Thos submitted this during the Perth Beach Sculpture Competition, and it won her $4,500 in the process. How could someone actually make money from sculpting things from Barbie parts? She used 3,000 naked Barbie dolls, and it probably wouldn't be the ideal place to relax in the shade on the beach. Somehow her inspiration had something to do with environmental concerns and childhood memories. She might have had some skeletons in the closet she's not discussing publicly. Number 11. Snake ladies. If you've been to a modern art museum, you probably wonder how some of this stuff makes on the walls, or how it's even in a museum. This eerie piece from South Korea makes our list because it definitely would give me nightmares. These bald women heads just seem to be staring off into space in different directions. Not exactly sure how they would move, but maybe their long necks can slither like a snake. You probably shouldn't come here after closing hours. Number 10. My Bed. This piece of art was created by Tracy Emin, a British artist. This piece of art is called My Bed. She looks like she could really use a maid or someone to help her clean. It was exhibited in Tate Art Gallery in 1999 and sold for £150,000, roughly $220,000 US. This was possibly the easiest way to make money ever. This tends to show the intimate details of her life and shows empty liquor bottles, cigarette butts, stained sheets, and a stuffed animal. She basically made a mess and somehow sold it as artwork. Hold on, the ridiculousness doesn't even end there. It was even shortlisted for the Turner Prize. If you can get rich just being a slob, then what's the point of going to college? Number 9. Everyone I've ever slept with. In case you were wondering who's ever shared that bed with Tracy, she made that into a piece of art too. It kinda looks like she gets around occasionally. Can't you remain just a little bit more discreet about your personal life? The tent displays 102 names, and there's probably a few she forgot about. She's been around the block a few times and not ashamed of it. She claims that the bed wasn't just about casual sex, but also about intimacy. Tracy has a complicated past with men, it appears. The tent actually burnt down in a random fire. She refused to recreate it despite the possible cash she could have got out of it. The creepiest thing about this place seems to be the fact that she remembered all the names, all 102 of them. Number 8. Eyeball Monster. Imagine walking down the streets of New York and coming across this horrific piece of art that you see in this photo. Many are not thrilled with street art because many of the images can come out disturbing and give children nightmares. This creation by an artist whose name goes by Buff Monster is supposed to represent how all eyes are focused on New York City. Buff Monster is notorious for using the color pink. He's not only restricted to street art and has executed lovely paintings that hang in art galleries as well. Beauty is truly in the eyes of the beholder. Number 7. Giant Hand of the Desert. It almost appears as though a giant zombie is rising from the ground in the middle of the Atacama Desert in Chile. Located in one of the driest places in the world, it features a hand popping up in the middle of nowhere. This was built in the 1980s, and apparently, hands rising from the desert was an actual obsession from the sculptor. This is located near the Chilean town of Antofagasta, and it measures 36 feet high from the ground. Dry desert places are pretty creepy by themselves, but then you add a zombie hand to the mix, and you might start to have some nightmares. Number 6. Traveling Eyeball. If you thought the CIA was always watching every move you made, you haven't seen this giant eyeball art installation before. It never blinks, and it certainly is lacking eyelids. The creepier thing about this is that it never stays in one spot either. In this photo, it's in Chicago. The next day, it could be outside your bedroom window peering through the crack in your blinds. This is known as Tony Tassett's eye, and it's moved a couple times to different parks in the US. In this photo here, it's featured in Dallas, and this 30-foot eyeball kind of pops out, you could say. But could this really be another art installation from the Illuminati? There really seems to be no other explanation. Number 5. Creepy baby statues. Located within the beautiful Kamka Park in Prague, you'll find something that is a little bit unsettling. These tiny demonic-looking rugrats are found crawling through the entrance to the Kampa Museum. Here in this photo, we see them scaling the Zizkov TV tower with some kind of paranormal being with anti-gravitational powers. The TV tower was a symbol of Soviet power during the Cold War, so there could be some kind of political representation behind these evil faceless babies. Some believe the statues represent the lack of creative developments of children due to the communist rule here. Whatever the case may be, it's certainly one of the creepiest things you'll find in this mysterious country. Number 4. Kostel Savacho Jiri Ghost Church. There are a lot of creepy art installations in the Czech Republic, and this ghost church has to make our list as one of the creepiest. It was left abandoned for more than 40 years because the congregation members were completely convinced it was haunted or cursed. Built in 1352, it was home to many spontaneous fires, and it always seemed like it needed repairs. Finally, in 1968, the entire roof fell out of nowhere during a funeral service, and they decided to give up on it. In order to restore a little bit of tourism to the area, they repaired the church again, but decided to give it a twist. Ghost statues were added because the Czech people just enjoy making things creepy. In all reality, though, it was done to symbolize the church's dark past. Number 3. Man's Best Friend. People love dogs, especially cuddly poodles and even pit bulls and sometimes huskies and ponchos. But how can they possibly get creepy and end up in this video? Well, go ahead and let a modern artist sculpt one for you. That'll do the trick. There's not a whole lot of backstory on this image, unfortunately. But as we've seen before, hybrids are popular things for artists to interpret. But couldn't they have just made things a little bit less realistic in order not to creep us out? This hybrid appears to display a complete mix between a dog and a person. We assume this would be a fairly close representation of what a real human and dog hybrid would look like. If a dog did look like this, would it still be your best friend? Number 2. Sleeping Beauty. Would you find it creepy if someone was watching you while you were sleeping? It seems like something straight out of a horror film, but this was actually an art exhibit for a while. While they are sleeping, an outside participant agrees to marry a woman that wakes up when he gives her a kiss. The exhibit is on display, and the ones in charge of this claim that the true beauty comes out of the anticipation of whether or not the sleeping beauty will wake up and get married. This is supposed to represent a modern interpretation of a damsel in distress, but seems like an easy way just to find a new spouse. The Ukrainian government has tried shutting down many exhibits in this art gallery, but they weren't especially fond of this one. In this photo, it looks like this girl might want to pretend to keep on sleeping. Let's just hope Bill Cosby doesn't make an appearance to this one. And number 1. The Human Anatomy. If the idea of human taxidermy isn't creepy enough already, the bodies exhibit at the Luxor Hotel and Casino could take the cake. The human anatomy is preserved and displayed in a one-of-a-kind exhibit and really blurs the line between art and science. While it's scientific to understand more about our anatomy, the bodies had to be carefully preserved using a process called polymer preservation. The artistic side comes out when the bodies are eventually placed in poses of them playing sports, holding a heart, or even riding a horse. Art, science, both? What do you think?
So did you find that to be creepy? Let us know in the comments section and maybe we'll feature you in an upcoming video.